Hi everyone, and welcome to this episode of Writers Infusion. I'm your host, Susan. I'm here with Dave, Jen, Julie, and Ed. And our guest today is Wendy Sheehan from Rhode Island. Wendy, thanks for coming in today.
Thanks for having me.
Wendy wrote a short story that we're going to read today, that Julie's going to read, and then we'll do the critique.
Okay.
Thanks.
Short story is entitled Where's Barnaby by Wendy Sheehan. Summary: death of husband leads middle-aged woman to change the direction of her life. When Muriel Pereira was 58, her husband Manny, mayor of Shallow Bay, dropped dead in front of a crowd in the Elks Hall. Once the shock wore off and Manny's kids went back to their own lives, Muriel took stock of her life and decided that suicide was an option. Without Manny, life was not worth living. The kids, all 5 of them, were his kids, not hers, and couldn't care less if she lived or died. Muriel would have liked to get a job and had once been head librarian in town, but those days were long in the past. While Manny had been mayor, one of the town's departments could have taken her on if they could have gotten past the issue of nepotism, but not now. She was old news. Her phone seldom rang, condolence letters had dwindled, and everyone's attention was on the new mayor. Manny's kids had disappeared. Even her favorite Barnaby had gone back to his landscaping business. Now that the rainy days of May had caused her grass to shoot up, where was Barnaby? He'd always taken care of the lawn, now a tangled, weedy mess. She would have to get out the lawnmower and hedge trimmer and do the work herself. Muriel realized that if she was going to kill herself, she'd have to see a lawyer about drawing up a will. She'd leave her house to the Historical Society. Her antique gem, high on the bluff overlooking the harbor, was worth a fortune in today's real estate market. If Manny's kids thought she'd leave the house to them, they should think again. Muriel made herself a cup of tea and thought back to the early days of her life with Manny. His first wife had died and left him with the 5 kids. A grandmother and then an aunt had stepped in, and when they'd left for their more peaceful lives, Manny went looking for a wife. She had to be mature, with no kids of her own, and a woman born and bred on the island of Shallow Bay, because she had to understand the ways of islanders. People who lived on this cold little island off the coast of New England were a peculiar breed, difficult to define, and his wife had to be one of them. Finally, she had to have the broad back and the hefty shoulders of a workhorse. Muriel Peyton fit the bill. He found her standing behind the circulation desk in the library. She was taking no nonsense from a group of adolescent boys that, to his surprise, included his own sons, Tony and Todd, who were snickering over pictures of naked women in a National Geographic magazine. Manny knew right away that Muriel was just what he needed. She was 43 at the time, an old maid by island standards, and they married quickly. She rolled up her sleeves and went to work to bring order to the chaotic Pereira household. She'd already known Barnaby, the youngest, at age 7. Barnaby loved the library, and he'd spent many a cold Saturday afternoon there, huddled over a stack of picture books. When Muriel became his stepmother, he climbed onto her lap, a picture book in his hands. The poor, mother-starved little boy loved Muriel, and Muriel loved him. Not so with the other kids. Matt, 15, began to hang out with a bad crowd. Sullen, angry Matt, when not in school, was at someone else's house, and when he had to be home, he walked under a black cloud. Muriel taught him how to cook, and when he was a few years older, a high-end seafood restaurant took him on. Tony and Todd, the 11-year-old twins, were a handful, sassy and rude and running all over the island looking for trouble. When Muriel tried to rein them in, they shouted, "You're not our mother, you can't tell us what to do." "We'll see about that," Muriel had answered. She turned them into Tom Sawyer boys and put them to work painting the shed. There was never an end to the work that needed to be done on Manny's house, and her list of chores kept the boys busy. Spoiled Kathy, Manny's 13-year-old princess, was Muriel's biggest challenge. No stepmother on earth could ever meet her own mother's level of beauty, patience, and understanding. Muriel had overheard Kathy say to her cousin, "If Dad had to get married again, why do you have to pick that ugly old stick? She's even older than him." Older, yes, but only by 2 years. Muriel set down rules, established order, and Manny backed her up every time. He'd fallen in love with his new wife, much to his surprise. Months went by, and soon Barnaby had slid off Muriel's lap, never to return. He became a Cub Scout and entered the world of boys, a place far more exciting than the land of picture books and fairy tales. After 5 years of battles, Kathy married Michael Gomez and was gone. Peace reigned. When all the kids had grown up and left, Manny had sold his house, and they moved into Muriel's small, historic home up on the bluff. Now Manny was gone too, and she was right back where she'd started, alone, but without a job, without even a family. Where were they all? Where was Barnaby? Muriel was a believer in life after death. She knew Manny awaited her on the other side. It was up to her to take that crucial step. A sip of rat poison, jump off the bluff, an overdose of something or other. What did it matter? A knock on the door, and there stood Mirabelle Lewis, island busybody, Snoop, and, as Manny had put it, up to no good. She stepped into the house. "Hello, dear, just wondering how you're doing." They had known one another since their high school days, but they'd never been friends. Muriel had run with a fast crowd and had never given Mirabelle had run with a fast crowd and had never given Muriel a second look until years passed and Muriel married the mayor. Mirabelle made herself comfortable on the couch, and her eyes swept over the room, taking in the old beams, the paneled walls, and the charming corner cupboards, all witnesses to generations of Peytons for nearly 250 years. "What are your plans, dear?" Mirabelle asked. "Are you going to stay here? This house must be a lot of work for you. You know, there are some lovely condos down on Water Street. I should think at your age you'd want to be closer to the shops." She's up to something. Mirabelle's husband, Gus, was in real estate. He'd sent his wife to test the waters, looking for a listing. This was not a social call. "I'm staying right here, Mirabelle. I'm the same age as you, in case you've forgotten. We went through high school together, remember? Are you ready to live near the shops?" "Well, no, of course not. I just thought..." She repositioned herself on the couch. "What fun we had back then in high school," she went on. "Too bad we can't recapture those days." Those days had not been fun for Muriel, and there was nothing to recapture. While Mirabelle had been out on the beach with Gus, having sex behind a sand dune, no doubt, and drinking beer, she had spent her time buried in books. Mirabelle got up to leave. "Well, I won't keep you. I'm glad to see you're doing so well. We all miss Manny, a terrible loss for the island and for you. But you have his sons, and I'm sure Kathy is a comfort." Ha! If she only knew she hadn't seen Kathy since Manny's funeral. After Mirabelle left, Muriel sat down to give the suicide idea further thought. A picture took root in her head. Mirabelle at her funeral, telling everyone she'd been the last person to sit in the Peyton living room, and how depressed poor Muriel had seemed. What good friends they had been. She could not let that happen. And then she heard Manny. "Whoa, girl! Don't let Mirabelle Lewis put one over on you. Fight!" She would fight. Manny was back, but he wasn't ready for her. There were things she had to do. The current librarian was only 23 and had a husband in the Coast Guard, so she'd be moving on soon enough. She, Muriel, would take some courses on the mainland this summer, brush up on the new technology that had come to libraries during those 15 years she'd been gone, taking care of Manny and his kids. Then she heard a familiar rumble coming from her yard, and she looked out the window. Her heart swelled, for here was Barnaby starting up the lawnmower.
Thanks. I loved your opening sentence.
Yeah,
It grabbed me right away.
Yeah.
And it made me want to read more. And in my opinion, it can be really tough to grab and have that opening sentence grab you right away. And I liked the character. You know, she had a lot of kind of sarcasm going on, and you know, I really liked all that about her and the story. I have two main things that really hit me that really don't have to do with the writing. I think the writing's good. That I wanted to bring up. So the first one I'll bring up is that I didn't buy that she wanted to commit suicide. I just did not feel like there was enough going on to make her want to do that, because I did not feel any connection to her with regards to why she would do that. Was she really sad about her husband dying? Because we can't feel that at all in this story. So I cannot tell why she'd want to do that.
Well, I think I qualified that by saying it was an option.
Mm-hmm.
It was
I didn't feel like there was, I mean, maybe there was something going on with her, but I didn't feel like there was enough there to make me think that it was that bad to her.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. So I don't know, I thought we could hear and see.
Yeah, I had a similar view on that. So when I think about this story, I think about so what's the conflict? What is the issue?
Mm-hmm.
At the beginning, we're told the issue is, does she want to live or die? That's a pretty serious issue.
It
Okay?
is.
So what I think, according to what you were saying, what I would like to see is for us to be plunged into the pain and the despair that she's feeling. Right now, we're getting it kind of at arm's length. It's being described rather than us being shown what's going on. In
I
other
don't
words,
even think it's just being described either. You're not even
Not enough
saying
detail.
that she's devastated.
right,
You don't even say she was devastated and couldn't live without him and wanted to go on.
yeah.
It's not even discussed
See,
how
I feel
sad
like-
she is.
I feel like this is really well thought out. In other words, that you have all the characters, you have all the scene, all the relationships, all worked out. It's like a picture puzzle, but it needs to be rearranged.
Yeah.
Okay. From the point of view of, first of all, like part of this is set in the past. Like the whole first page is before the action of the story starts. The action of the story doesn't start until the top of page 2. So that's a flashback. Just as a thought, what if this were all in real time? Like show us what her day is like, show us the reminders of her husband who's not there anymore, something reminding her of the kids who she doesn't see. She's isolated, she doesn't have a job, she's in this house all by herself. Really help us to see what her situation is. And, to really drive it home, this woman is in a hard position here. This is, so that by the end, when she makes, the decision to live for spite, which is always a great reason, that we're like, that we were in doubt. We didn't know what was going to happen here. And I think every element in here can become part of that. If you mentioned the daughter, they fought for years, always trouble, and maybe peace doesn't reign. Maybe they're still battling.
I also thought you could bring some of that in real time. So instead of telling so much, that maybe one of the kids, she has a conversation with one of the kids, and some of this can even, I don't know if you agree, but some of this could come out in that conversation where...
Or if she has to ask them something. Do you know where this is? Do you know how this works?
Yeah.
Because many used to do this.
Right. And
It's
maybe
like,
you have that...
Oh, I don't have time.
Maybe a kid stops
all
by
this kind of
because they
stuff.
want something. It's a selfish
Right.
reason.
Not
I
to
want
help her.
And then when she stops by, they have a conversation that kind of gives away some of the
Right.
past between the dialogue, and you
Yep.
find out from that one dialogue that she's not talking to someone else, or you learn a lot through a dialogue,
Yeah,
so
I
it's
agree
real
with you.
time.
That was brought out in my writing group just this afternoon about how
Oh, that's funny.
if you, rather than telling the reader, show it through dialogue. That's
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Great
that was my
minds think
biggest
alike.
problem with the story, was everything was so distant. We were being told about, but we weren't living with the characters.
okay.
I think you're cutting your story. You're telling us that things were miserable for her, and the kids were tough. Why should I believe that? That may be a very distorted point of view. She may be miserable. Let us be with them. I would start earlier when she got married. And it's good. Here's the beginning of what I was thinking. The summary says, death of husband leads middle-aged woman to change. That has been done a billion times. That plot line has been done
Okay.
any number of times. This is where you step in and say, I can beat them all. I can do it better. In order to do it better, we have to live with this difficult situation. She is a newbie in the family. Everybody else knows each other. She is stepping into a difficult situation. Show us, it says right at the beginning, she has to have big shoulders. Well, what? What does she have to do? Have us live with her for a while, taking care of the kids, stomping on the two twins that were screwing off, the princess. How does she, dialogue, can you imagine the dialogue with her and the princess?
Oh, yeah.
Do it. Because the only person I really knew in this story was Mirabelle, where you had a conversation.
Yeah.
You felt her seedy, shallow,
Yeah.
because there's lots of dialogue. We weren't being told about this seedy, shallow person. We met this seedy, shallow person, and I got to know that person. I didn't like her, but you
weren't
did
supposed to.
I understand. You did a good job, a great job, in introducing a character by not telling us that she's seedy and shallow, by showing us that she's. My teeth are going to shoot out of my mouth if I say that again. If you want to show a wise kid, have her deal with the wise kid. Have the police come to the house. In other words, you've started way too late for us to believe or even feel that she's in a tough situation.
But if she wants to make this a short story, then I guess you have
Yeah,
to
I was
decide.
trying to keep it under
So
1,500
what if you?
words.
But what if instead of if you'd made it a short story, if she did something like
I-
what I suggested, but you have it. The kids are grown up and they're coming there because they want their father's treasured something, and then through that conversation you can kind of get a feel. But whatever it is, wherever you start, you are dealing with a conversation and you learn a lot through that.
To tie in Sue's point, Dave's point, and Ed's jigsaw puzzle concept, I would say flesh out that first paragraph. We learned so much in that first paragraph. Please tell us about his death. Tell us about her reaction, his funeral. Maybe those conversations can take place at the funeral. One of the kids can be upset with her about the husband's death, even though it wasn't her fault. The kid can be lashing out, or the kids can show great compassion and then disappear into the wind. But I think
That can be
there's
really traumatic.
the wake. There's so much
To show us,
potential.
there's her husband, getting up to give a speech or whatever, and then, clutching his chest and falling to the ground. It's like, holy crap.
Right. So the incident surrounding
Yeah.
the death itself.
I don't know, I would disagree. I liked the first sentence.
I love the first
You know,
sentence.
I don't know that you don't necessarily have to
Yeah,
show
well.
that. But I, just to kind of, and I thought the writing was really good, and I liked the story, and I thought the ending was really sweet. Because Barnaby's kind of the light in this whole life that she
So where has he been? Where's he
Right.
He's
been in
mowing
her
other
sorrow?
lawns.
Well, the fact that he shows, because this is like it's a slice of life. This is just a slice of life story. This little part of her life that, although it's significant, it happens in a very short amount of time. But I felt like I wasn't sure why you chose to have almost, Manny kind of almost pick her out like he was picking out a pair of shoes. You know what I mean? Like, why not have him like fall in love with her? And I know you say later, like, eventually he fell in love with
Well,
her.
that was an addition later on, after I revised the story. That was not in the original story.
That he fell in love with her.
Yeah.
Oh.
I put
But I
that
think
in.
he needed a workhorse. It's like Sound of Music. The Colonel needed the Colonel.
Yeah,
The
see, I
captain.
felt
the
like
captain.
I was,
the captain.
I was
the captain
okay
needed
with
someone
that.
to raise all those children.
I was okay with it
okay
being-
with that.
Well, I thought that because you say that she loves Barnaby, and I think you actually show us that she loves Manny. That I got. But I guess if there was like more of a passion with them or a connection, I'm not talking about sex or anything like that, but just seeing the connection, like you say, like he always backed her up. Yeah, but there is actually very little of Manny.
Well,
in
he's,
her.
he's dead.
He's dead.
Well,
I mean, I really couldn't.
I understand, but most of this is a flashback, so he's not dead in the flashbacks. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, I see what you're saying, yeah.
So, and I'm not saying you need a whole scene with Manny, but I just felt like
Yeah, I understand what
With
you're
the
saying.
Sense him. We
Right.
should know his
I
importance.
want
in her
to. No, I
life.
want to feel the love they had for each other, because then I can feel the loss.
But you can even feel that if you had a scene and he's already dead. You think about what Ed said about how she's wandering around the house and she's alone. She can pick up something of his.
Right.
She's doing okay. She's brushing her teeth, and all of a sudden she sees something of his and she breaks down sobbing.
Yeah.
Then even if you
Smells
haven't
his
met
shirt in
him,
the closet. Yeah, takes
then
his
you
shirt out
know
the
how
closet.
she
Or something that he
feels.
did
Smells it.
for her that she sees to be reminded of what
Right.
he did for her. And,
Yes.
So
a
I'd
gift or
probably have to
something, or-
expand the
yeah.
story.
Please,
Now,
it can
what's
still
the-
be a
little
short
bit.
story, but
No, I think
longer.
longer.
Yes.
Now, what's the
Yeah, I was really trying to keep it
constraints?
down,
I mean,
so I left,
Yes.
Yeah, what is the
probably could
constraint?
have
Is that
done
an-
more with it if
What's
I...
the constraint for? I mean,
Why
the
your
size.
1,500
Yeah,
word
why
limit?
why
I
that?
just,
Just a personal number limit.
1,500 words.
Well, that's
We
all.
say up the ante. Give yourself more
Yeah.
space
Yeah, no, I
and
can
time.
definitely expand this.
Yeah.
And the reason I did leave a lot of it out was because of the word constraint.
Yeah.
Our word constraint, or just
No,
in general?
just my own imposed,
Oh,
you know.
Well, stop that. Stop that right now. Give yourself a word.
You know, and Ed had said that spite was a good reason to stay alive, and again, I disagreed with that. I thought that the fact that Barnaby showed up was the reason.
I did
to
too.
live. Like, it's almost like I think that Barnaby should show up, even though I liked the last line of him starting up the lawnmower. Like, maybe she could say she heard the sound outside, and she knew what it was, and then kind of go into why, you know, she's going to give it another shot, she's going to do this, she's going to fight, and then she looks out the window because she knows it's him, and he starts up the lawnmower. So it just kind of shows that the one, you know, beside Manny obviously being, you know, a loving member of that family with her, Barnaby was the one child that was kind of hers, you know, and accepted her as the mom.
And if
So
you-
that seemed like a more of a reason to stay alive.
Yeah, and I felt too that if you show more about how she felt about him, like I was saying, like she's breaking down sobbing when she sees something of his or whatever, but something to connect us more with that, and then maybe if there's and then following that, maybe she has a conversation with one of the kids that even brings it down more, and then maybe, you know, she's given her life to these kids who treat her like that, plus she can't get a job and get back into what she loves. And if we understand all that, then maybe it's Barnaby showing up at the end and being with her that snaps her out of it. But I almost didn't know what Maribel added to the story. I definitely didn't, maybe because I didn't see why she was in such despair. I didn't see why Maribel snapped her out of it. I almost felt like that conversation could have been with her kid, you know, another kid. But you have I don't know. She said, you know, you're near the end, and Maribel just left, and she says she could not let that happen. And then she heard Manny, "Whoa, girl, don't let Maribel Lewis put up one up over you, whatever, fight." She would fight. So it's almost like she made the decision not to let it happen. Then, but did she decide that, or did Manny decide that? I don't know.
I also
Maybe
think-
instead of Maribel, have it be Kathy that does that to her, the stepdaughter.
Well, that's what I thought, because
Who
you've
says,
already.
"Oh, you're gonna sell the house?" Like that might be more like, "Oh, Kathy came by to see me." Oh, Kathy came by to
But
see
there's
me
an
because she wants to
edge.
know if I'm selling the house.
Plus, the nice thing about doing that is you've already met the kids. Now you're introducing like a random Maribel character that we've never met before in this short story. Whereas if you have one of the kids have a conversation with her, we already know about them, and then you learn more about them because they have a conversation together.
I also think Manny's appearance, figurative appearance, is abrupt, and you need something. Maybe it is that you're smelling a shirt of his, or looking, or not you. The character is looking in the mirror. The character is.
You need
seeing
something to show how sad she
to
is.
bring him back, to bring the thought of him to her shoulder, or her mind, wherever he is.
We have
lurking.
to really understand that she's devastated enough to think about committing
Well,
suicide.
I really didn't envision her as to being that desperate. I had her in a moment of self-pity.
Okay.
She was
well,
sitting
that's
around
real.
feeling sorry
Sure.
for herself.
Sure.
Oh, suicide's an option. So I don't know whether I want to make her that desperate.
She's gonna kill herself. That's desperate.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
I
very
could-
She's even
desperate.
thinking of ways that, like, I mean, if you don't
Right,
want to seem that
methods.
desperate,
Her
then
methods, yeah.
suicide is not where you want to go with that.
Yeah, I don't feel like unless you're going to do that in more of a sarcastic way, I don't think that.
So I should, so if I leave that in there, I am going to have to show her desperation.
Which I don't think is
Yeah.
too hard to do. I really don't.
And I don't think you have to make this longer. Like, you can take
I
out the
don't
part
either.
where you're describing Kathy and her as a teenager and how she was tough, and switch Kathy and Maribel. Just change the name from Maribel to Kathy, and you have the disgusting character, except it's her stepdaughter.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And which makes it that much closer and that
I
much
think so.
worse. You know, when you talk about the boys when they were younger, what they did when they were younger is irrelevant. Show them now. Show them being snarky now, and she can maybe reminisce as she's talking to them.
was
Well,
gonna
this
say
is
that.
coming from the kid who, how many times did the police show up at the house because
Right.
of these two? Do you know what I mean? And you just can kind
Exactly.
of throw that in as an internal thought.
That makes
And I think
sense.
you can still do it in 5 pages. Just take a look at this and say,
Well,
okay,
I mean, now I
I'm talking about the twins. You know, okay, let's have a scene with the twins. And she can kind of quickly, in snippets, think back of like what little smarts they
I
were.
think so too.
I asked also if Matt kept his job because he seemed to be a troubled kid. Then she finds him a restaurant job, not anywhere but a high-end restaurant. I'm wondering if Matt kept his job, if he's on the straight and narrow, or if he
Well, I
fell
wanted
off.
to know from that perspective, when he started learning how to cook, if that switched him over and if she actually helped him become
That's a great
better
scene.
kid.
Yes,
Yeah, that's what
yes,
my intention
yes.
was.
Yeah,
She straightened him out.
She gave him
I didn't
his
quite get
future.
it.
She gave him a purpose.
Skill.
But again, we were told about it. Yeah,
Show us.
I think you're killing your story by stomping on the important stuff. Your 1,500 word limitation is arbitrary at best. You've got a lot of interesting characters, maybe too many. Bring it down to 3 kids or something. But think of her, think of the scene, and you should think in scenes, important scenes that relay a point. Imagine her in the kitchen with this troubled kid and say, no, you know, half a stick of butter like this. And you have the scene. Now you understand that you brought the kid from a very bad start into something positive.
And show him liking it.
But-
Show it the next day, like she wakes up and
Smells it.
he's cooking a gourmet omelet the next. Do you know what I mean? And
Something.
she doesn't say
proud.
anything. She just kind of lets him.
Yeah, there's too much.
Continue.
There's too much missing here, really.
And it's like I said, like Sue said, the writing is great. You have a great command of the language, and I think what you're hearing is that we want to know more about this character because we actually like her. And I would say write how many ever words you want, and then you can cut back.
Then you can whittle.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You know, don't kind of box yourself into say, okay, it's got to be 5 pages. Write
Exactly.
15, and then decide, does this progress my plot? Okay, that can go. Does this
Okay.
progress my plot? That can go, and you can whittle it down at that point. But let it flow. Let it go.
Makes sense? Thank
And
you.
if I could, I would change the title. You've mentioned Where's Barnaby a few times in the story.
Yeah.
It almost gives away. You surprised me with the ending, but it almost gives away the ending. When I see the ending, oh, okay, she was leading us toward Barnaby. So I don't know what I would call it, but you may want to call it something else about her sorrow, about her life, about her house on the hill, something. And we have to figure out where the story's going, and then she's
Well, the
thrilled
thing
to
is,
have
though,
Barnaby.
Barnaby is the one thing that is kind of holding her there.
Yeah.
And so I kind of like the title.
All right.
Yeah. I just.
Now, what's the hook of the story, though? Is it the ungrateful kids? Is it the death of the husband? Is it her
despair.
hopelessness at
Her
the end of?
despair.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you've thrown out a few very important things. I don't know what the hook of the story is. What are we solving here in 5 pages? Is it her resolution to live? Is it her overcoming her anger at the children for mistreating her and ignoring her when she needs? What is it?
All of those things.
But it's if I have to sort it out, then there's something wrong.
And by the way, we have to wrap up.
Oh.
We have about a minute to wrap up.
It's taking stock of her life and turning a corner and
Well-
going ahead with.
Yeah, like I think she got married so late in life, and she finally got a taste of that. Like she lived what it was 43 years without that kind of love and passion, the love that she had for this child, the love that she had for this man, and then she had this life that was good. I mean,
It
and
doesn't sound rewarding
and she
to me.
made the best, but she
Doesn't
but
sound
she took
rewarding.
these kids and tried to help them,
Yeah.
and she loved this man, and then it was just taken
Boom.
from her.
Done.
But we
You
don't
know,
know
like,
if she
she-
loves
she
this
got a
man. I
taste
mean,
of-
we don't get enough of a feel for that. We have to really
Yeah,
know.
but I think her despair might come from the fact that she got a taste of this love, this for him, and then it was gone, and she has to go back to where she was. Like, how the heck did she ever?
I mean,
live
that's a good story, but
before?
I'm not getting it here.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. That's kind of where how I'm kind of
Well, you're right.
interpreting
Yeah,
her.
that's how I meant to write
I mean,
it.
I think that you
There you
have
go.
a material here
Jen
for a
is
really
psychic.
compelling story.
But plus,
Well, you
she
think
had
of
a family.
anybody who was
She had a
heartbroken.
family, and then all of a sudden she didn't have a family.
Yeah,
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I
Devastating.
mean, that's devastating.
Okay,
Yeah,
I
she didn't just
appreciate
lose man.
Jen, Jen is psychic. She really gets into
No, it's-
people's life.
it's-
That's awesome.
No, but
You
that's
sensed
what
it.
I took
Yeah,
from it. Well, you
yes.
think of anyone that's been heartbroken, you know, you love someone so much and they break up with you and you're like, oh my gosh, how did I even ever live without them before?
Right.
You know,
Right. We just want that to
and
come
I think
through
that's
a
kind of
little
where
bit.
she's at. And this is much bigger because, again, she didn't get married at 20, she got married at 40-ish. Sorry,
Thank you.
I'm done.
Thank you very much.
Wendy, thank you so much for coming
Okay, I
in
appreciate
today.
all your comments, and I
Don't go
guess I'll
anywhere.
do some rewriting.
Yeah.
This is actually one short story in a whole series I'm writing
Oh.
that's
about the
interesting.
island.
Oh, nice.
Oh.
Fun. Okay.
And this one is number 8.
Oh.
All right.
So what
That's-
I've done is I've taken a character from
So,
each story and I've developed that character in the next story.
So we might have met Maribel.
You met, oh yeah, you met Maribel. And you met Manny and you met everybody else.
I would,
Okay,
I would,
so-
I would change
Don't
the
go in.
names and not have
But
them all
don't-
sit down,
together.
sit down. Don't go there.
So I just before we, so I just want to thank you for coming today, and I want to thank everyone else for coming and joining us for this episode of Writers Infusion. We will see you next time. Keep writing.